Hello, and welcome to our forum, The Power of Truth. My name is Laverne Duncan. I'm the founder and executive director of the Andy Street Community Association. And I want to thank you for joining us for this important discussion in honor of Women's History Month. You will hear four amazing and influential women share their truth about the important issues that are facing our communities today. Driving the discussion is Veronica Ronnie Holcomb. For more than 30 years, Veronica has worked with individuals who accept the challenge to lead and perform at higher levels of impact and influence. With the launching of her coaching practice in 1985, ladies, Veronica became one of the first female executive coaches in corporate America. Veronica's approach combines personal insight, a proven model of structured analysis, a reinforcement of strengths, one-on-one coaching, and a strategic plan for increased effectiveness. Veronica and her clients collaborate to carefully examine the expectations and demands associated with their roles and identify their true talents and technical abilities. She guides everyone to strengthen his or her leadership acumen as a foundation to maximize personal and organizational effectiveness. She's a graduate of Southern Connecticut University and holds a master's degree in organizational leadership and leadership coaching from Regent University. She was a longtime speaker with the American Management Association, a certified feedback coach with the Center for Creative Leadership. She is the author of Ready, Set, Grow, 10 Success Strategies for Winning in the Workplace, and a contributing author to Leadership Defined with Dr. Warren Bennis. Veronica is currently writing a series of children's books on leaderships. I present to you Veronica Ronnie Holcomb. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you, Laverne. Thank you, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here. When Laverne asked me to join this panel, I said, this is right up my alley. I love coaching women. You know, in the beginning, and you can imagine, I started coaching in 1982, and I didn't see a lot of diversity at that time. It was many years before I started to see women and younger people and people of color. And my heart is really with raising up female leaders. I, like you, I'm sure, are very concerned with what is happening in our world today. And my belief is that if women made more decisions, if we sat at the table, I'm not saying things would be perfect. I just don't think they'd be as messy as they are now. It's pretty bad. So this right here is important. I think women supporting women is an antidote for too often our lack of success. We too often give our power away. We work ourselves to exhaustion, and so we don't have power left over. We need to support each other, and that's what this is about. I'm excited to be here with these three amazing, wonderful panelists. This is a treat. Let me introduce them to you briefly, and I'll explain the process, how we're going to work, and a little more in just a minute. I don't know how your, the screen is working, so I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. I'm going to give you, first of all, the Honorable Tamara Banfield. She is a judge for the Clark County Superior Court in Vancouver, Washington. She was appointed to the bench by Governor Jay Inslee in January of 2021, and she was the first Black person to serve on the Clark County Superior Court. We applaud her for that. Mm-hmm. And then I have Lorianne Harrison. She is the assistant city manager for the city of Huntington Beach and a member of the Long Beach Board of Harbor Commissioners. She is the 65th commissioner to serve on the board, but only the 5th woman to do so. And then we have Dr. Nina Richardson, who is the Associate Director for the Master of Science in Business Analytics program at the University of Southern California. Nina is a seasoned professional with more than a decade of experience in leadership in higher education administration. And let's give Nina a shout out because she recently received her PhD, and we want to congratulate her for that.
Yes.
All right, powerful women. If you'd like more detail in terms of their bios, you can go on to the website, which is BlackHistoryMonthLB.com. You can check that out later, and there's a lot more other good stuff. All right, this is how this is going to work. I've got a series of questions, and basically we're going to go round robin and ask each of the panelists to respond. Now, by their own admission, some of them have said they're a little verbose, and I have permission to kind of cut them off. So don't hate the messenger. My job is to keep us moving and be on time. There's a lot of material to cover, and they're amazing. We could be here for 2 or 3 hours easily. So we're probably going to spend about 30 or so minutes with a number of questions. And as you have questions, you in the audience, you can submit them on the bottom of your screen into the Q&A box. After about 30 minutes or so, we will read the questions and have the panelists answer them. We also have a chat. You'll see the chat. You're probably very familiar with chat. And here is where, if you have some friends, you can give shout outs to your friends if they're on the call as well, or a particular shout out to something that the panelist has said. Questions should really go in Q&A. If they slip into the chat, we'll be on top of that. We have Sandra in the Q&A. She'll be answering that. And Denise will be, did I say that right? Sandra's in the chat, and Denise will be in the Q&A monitoring that. So this is a whole team, but this should work very well. All righty. Have I said everything we need to say? Yes, here we go. When I was about 15, I spent a lot of years in the YWCA, and I was part of a group that met, I don't even remember, maybe once a week or so. It was high school, and I was selected to represent our chapter in Connecticut, which is where I'm calling you from, at a national conference, a national leadership conference of young girls. And I count that as the beginning of my leadership career, the beginning of me speaking in front of people. I got a chance to speak to like a couple of words, but 300 young women, that's where it started for me. But I never understood why I was selected. I wasn't the president. I might have been the vice president. I don't remember. I was not the president. I was not the strongest leader. But the woman that selected me, Sally Simmons, saw something. I mean, look at my career. I've spent 4 decades developing that. She saw something. So my first question to our panelists is, what is your superpower? Sally Simmons saw mine. What is your superpower? And how did you come to know that? Who'd like to answer first?
I'm happy to go first. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I'm honored to be here alongside of these wonderful ladies. I think my superpower, if I had to pick one, would be resiliency. It's a superpower that I definitely wasn't born with. It came with, years of getting knocked down, picking myself back up, getting knocked down again. But if I could point to an example, it would definitely be through my doctoral journey. Started my my EDD program right after my honeymoon. I was really motivated, and then life happened. I had my first little one about a year into the program and had to stop. And then I had my second little one, put the dissertation down again, picked it back up. And then different life events came my way. I had a loss of a parent. I had some health issues. But I say all that to say that, it's never too late to continue your goals. And so with that said, I finished the EDD about a year ago through the pandemic while navigating my little 5-year-old through kindergarten and watching my 3-year-old. So if I could do it, I just encourage anyone, you can do it as well. So resiliency would definitely be one of my superpowers.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I personally think the pandemic was most hard on working women, particularly mothers, most hard, most difficult. Who else would like to take that question? Your superpower. We all have them.
I'll take it. Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Richardson, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and congratulations on getting that PhD. I'm so proud of you and have been watching your career and your beautiful family and those gorgeous little girls are just the sweetest. So I would say that my superpower is courage. And in my role as, actually I'm city manager now in Costa Mesa. I think the bio is a little outdated. I've been city manager. No, that's okay. I have been city manager now for 3 years. And what I found is in the public sector, in government, it's really important for leaders to have courage. When we find the conflicts that we have going on nationally, the ones that we have at the international level, at the local level, at every single level of government, typically what's lacking is courage to deal with challenging issues, the politics, very delicate matters, and strife and disagreement, and trying to sweep things under the rug or turning a blind eye and hoping that it goes away. In my career, I have found that my courage, being able to stand in my own truth, being able to handle very political and very delicate, high conflict matters has really been my strength. It's something that I actually enjoy because I find that when you're in that space, that's where the magic happens. It's during those times. It's during the civil rights movement is when we made progress. During the women's rights movement, that's when we made progress. When we're fighting for LGBTQ rights, that's when you make the progress. It's in that conflict that courage is necessary for us to stand up and make sure that we're talking about human rights. This isn't politics. These are human rights. And so for me, just being in the public sector, in government, trying to manage cities and these delicate conversations, it's the courage that really makes a big difference. And that's not something that a lot of leaders have. And it's something that's lacking and that we really need to bring back.
Absolutely, totally. Thank you, Lori. And I apologize, I had the wrong bio. Alrighty. Kamara, would you like to give that a shot?
Sure. I think one of my superpowers is authenticity. I try to be very authentic, and I try to be very honest and truthful, regardless of what that truth is. I think it's really hard for people to hear the truth. I think from the beginning of my career, well, from the beginning of my life, but the beginning of my career, I was refused to let others change who I was, to silence me, and I continued to speak what my truth was, regardless of how it made people feel. And I would try to do that with grace and, the ability to forgive others, but at the same time, not wavering, being unapologetic and being authentic. So that would be my superpower.
The three of you seem to share this, we're going to keep our eye on the prize. I understand my truth and I'm going for it. So is there a particular spiritual grounding? Is there a mindset, a philosophy that keeps you motivated and grounded? And anyone can jump in.
Well, I'll start since I stopped last. For me, I feel like you have to be prepared to be knocked down, and you have to just, we've already heard, it's the same thing. You have to be prepared to be knocked down. You have to be prepared to fail, because that's where you learn. And so for me, it's taken each failure and turn it into a gem. And I think that it's worked really well for me. This wasn't my first time putting my name in for judge. It actually was my 4th time, and a very complete, well, almost all white area, obviously, and facing a lot of racism and pushback, and being having people specifically call me aggressive because I'm a Black woman, and I was a prosecutor. I was the chief criminal before I became a judge at the prosecutor's office. First Black chief criminal as well. First Black prosecutor at the prosecutor's office. Let me just be clear. But the whole point was, my philosophy is to just make every failure a part of your growth, and to see the gift in all of that.
For me, I try to stay grounded in faith, also knowing that our ancestors went through a heck of a lot more in terms of trials and tribulations. Sometimes when I'm feeling sorry for myself and I've had a tough day at work and I'm struggling with my 3 teenage boys and dealing with a husband who has a very demanding job as well, I have to remember that so many women before us died for all of the great human rights that we have, the civil rights that we have. And if so many folks were enslaved for so long and they were able to actually persevere and get ahead and get us to the point that we're at today, there's no reason why I can't pull myself up and just get it together and do the best that I can. I try to stay grounded as a Philippians 4:13 woman and just constantly remind myself that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And sometimes I keep a Bible in my office. And I also have one right by my bedside, as many of us women do have. And I try to go to scripture if I'm really feeling a sense of being lost or confused. And I find that if I read scripture before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning, I usually have my answer. It'll come to you in the shower. You know, a lot of us will get those downloads and we think, is it a coincidence? Is that really what's happening? Trust your gut. That's really coming from your spiritual base, regardless of your religion. Women are so connected to the earth, universe, and everything around us, and we're all connected to each other. And for me, that spiritual grounding really is my mantra, and that's my mindset that I bring to work, even though I'm not talking about that at work, that separation of church and state, but it is the mindset that I come with, is that we can accomplish all things, no matter how difficult it is that it may seem, and just making sure that we're grounded in that and doing it with excellence.
Thank you. I'm sure you're getting a lot of amens out there. Go on, Dr. Nita.
Definitely, I would agree with Lorianne. I'm also a woman of faith. That definitely grounds me as well. I would say, my leadership style is servant leadership because of that faith, right? I think that God has a purpose and a plan for everyone's life. So when, I go out and lead, I definitely keep that in mind to empower others, to inspire others and invest in their well-being. And I think that makes such a difference on a team to, really have them motivated and really being on your team and leading in that way. Even in my community, just volunteering and being that servant that's so needed in our community today.
Absolutely. Let's pick up from there. What have you all done over the course of your careers to develop your skills as a leader? Who'd like to jump in?
Okay, I'll start again. I would say, in the beginning of my profession, I was fortunate to have a lot of positions that really invested in my professional development. And I took advantage of those things, the conferences, the professional associations. I think they were really pivotal to building your skills, to really building your network. That was really imperative to, the start of your career, because you just don't know who you're going to meet in that elevator to give that elevator speech, right? It's so important. And then also, I think I did a lot of informational interviews. I sought out those leaders that I wanted to be like in the future, the VPs, the presidents of universities, and I sat down with them to really see what their day-to-day looked like, and if that's something that I could see myself doing one day. And it was really helpful just to see what their skill set was and where I needed to get to be in that position. So those were some areas that I worked on early on in my profession.
Just to follow up on that, people will sit down with you, won't they, and share?
Yes, they will. They're very open about and transparent about their path and how they got to where they need to be. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, in fact, they're flattered, especially if they're men. I'm just saying. I mean, but they are flattered. All right, who else? What else have you done, Lorianne, Kamara, to develop your skills as a leader?
So what I tried to do was really identify people from really diverse backgrounds. I've often had I would actually say a lot of men as mentors, especially if you're in a male-dominated field. It's important for you to make those connections and for them to give you candid advice and feedback on your leadership style, your management style, how you're perceived by your peers, things that you need to work on. And people will be honest and they'll tell you. Early on in my career, like many women, I'm sure that if you're strong, you're smart, you're really accomplished, and you're excited about something, I used to hear all the time, you're so passionate but a man might be just called, effective, or I would be told that I was aggressive, and someone else, a male counterpart might be a good leader, or I was being told that I was being bossy, whereas someone else was just, kind of direct. And
Right.
so getting that feedback was important to me, because then I could just dial the knob in different settings based on what I needed to do. And it became a talent and a skill. And I mean, a lot of us talk about code switching and things like that, but there's the talent that you have and the skills that you develop technically. But I find that where a lot of women get stuck is not on the technical side. We'll be very strong technically. It's on these soft skills and understanding
right.
your audience,
Right.
being self-aware and knowing who your audience is and how you relate to them. In my profession, I have to deal with, a lot of people from different backgrounds and men who are in very high level positions. And so, I have to be mindful of the roles that they play when I'm working with a police chief and a fire chief. I understand the chain of command, and I understand the importance of that position in an organization. And there are times when I will just I'll allow for that individual to be able to hold a certain space in the room. I don't need to do it as a city manager. I know that I'm the city manager. I know that for his team, it's important for him to lead, and I can do that easily. I think a lot of it is knowing when to lean in, when to stand back, when to offer support and assistance. And I find that just that self-awareness is really key. And
Absolutely.
as you're going through your career, you have to solicit that and ask for people to be honest with you. Some people have an off-putting style, and that creates conflict in the workplace. Take that feedback, really try to understand yourself. I loved taking the test that tests your personality style. I found that it was really important for me. Early on in my career, I was all director controller, not good. And so I found that I was just running people crazy and ragged, and it just wasn't helpful. I started to really focus on the supporting and the influencing and the advocating. And I found that I've become a more well-rounded leader. I still have plenty to learn, and I'm not perfect, but at least I was able to adjust. And I think having that self-awareness, getting that feedback, adjusting your style to different audiences, people, much like parenting, you have kids that have different strengths, and you're tough with one and the other one falls apart. And so that one you have to encourage.
All right.
So,
And it's also get some coaching. You get the feedback and get some coaching. All right, Kamara, what have you done?
Well, I did a lot of professional development. I was lucky enough to be invited to different leadership programs and institutions, and I appear to be a very outgoing person to people, but I really have a hard time being in a room with new people. So I really forced myself to be uncomfortable and learn how to navigate that. So that was one of the first steps, to try to take on some attributes of the mentors that I had around me that had faith in me, that were showing me that I was right for the position, and try to learn from them, but make it my own. Again, be very authentic about that. I also feel like I practice servant leadership, and so the way that I've moved up in the process is just to really get to know the people that are around me, to know what their needs are, to try to be very supportive of their needs. And when you're in a position of power, then to make sure that you're pulling that up to the absolute top leadership, because a lot of people leadership, they won't even look at it. My boss used to always ask me when I was the elected, he's like, you always know what's going on in everyone's life. And I was like, that's how you know how to lead them. That's how you know what their needs are. That's how you know when they're feeling weak, and you can give them something. So I completely agree with that statement. I just, being a servant leader, I think you have to really be mindful of what the needs are of the people around you. And I'm sure just like the other women here, I was, on the board for the YWCA, and I was on the school board. I took positions of leadership, smaller and on the way up, so I could practice that leadership and learn what the needs of my community were.
Absolutely. I am such a big advocate of people getting on boards, because you can serve, some good, but also to practice in low risk situations. Excellent, excellent. And for those of you who are listening, these skills do take time. They take a while. They take a minute, because we've got to get the feedback and practice, and we're going to fall here and there, and it's a process. But you can get there. Yeah, you can learn that. What would you say are your greatest challenges as a woman of color? We've got many. What has been your greatest challenge? And then how have you overcome it? I'm going to ask Is it okay? I'm going to start Nina. She's first on my screen.
Sure, no problem. So I would say, oh gosh, I have to pick one. I'll pick a couple actually. So I guess the biggest challenge for me would just be always having to justify your qualifications, right? Being the only, mainly the only Black woman in the room or at the table, you're always having to, tell people why you're qualified and for this position. I mean, we see it today with Ketanji, Brown Jackson, being the most
I want to show this to you though.
in the room and her having to prove herself. And so for me, professionally, that's probably the biggest challenge. I would say as a wife who's married to a Black man, having to have that burden and hearing his experiences that he brings home with running a large city. I have to also, I'm a mom of 2 Black little girls. And, just the other day, my little 4-year-old came home really sad about one of her favorite characters is a Disney character. And she couldn't play that with her friends. Her friends wouldn't let her be the character because she didn't have a little blonde, long braid, and having to explain that to her at the age of 4, right? So those are all tough burdens that we carry as mothers, as wives, in our professions. And so, it's difficult to deal with sometimes, I would say. But I do have hope. There's certain things that were, just the other day, Biden signed a bill, right? An anti-lynching bill after all these years from Emmett Till. And so those things give me hope and keep me going in life.
Thank you. All right. And let's go to Kamara.
I think that the biggest challenge for me was believing in myself as a Black woman. And it ties hand in hand. You can be the top of your class, but everyone's always questioning it. You can get into the best schools. Everyone thinks it's affirmative action. And honestly, I internalized that for years. It made me feel like maybe I was an imposter. And that was a really hard thing for me to get over. Honestly, at my investiture, listening to, the Supreme Court Justice of, one of the Supreme Court Justices of Washington, who was one of my mentors, talk about me and who I was and what I've done and what I've accomplished, all of a sudden I was like, wait, I am that person. I am that person. And I feel like we get convinced every day that our accomplishments aren't real, that they've been somehow handed to us, that we're not that bright, that we're not that beautiful. And so as a Black woman, for me, it was getting over myself. And because of everything, we've all been swimming in the same water. They've been telling us the same thing for a long time about who we are. And we do tend to internalize that. So it was, the biggest challenge was getting over myself.
Yeah, that's probably the number one thing that I deal with as a coach with women. It's that lack of confidence. And so I'm just going to do a little bit of coaching right here. If the person who is giving you this feedback does not believe in your growth and development, they're not credible. They're not credible. I don't care what kind of titles they have. I don't care. Positions, they're not credible. That feedback, you don't receive that. You do not receive that because they don't know you. They don't know you. All right, Lorianne.
I think my greatest challenge as a woman of color professionally has been 2 things. One, always having to go through a different process, always being created for me when I'm applying for a position and I'm competing for a position. It didn't happen with this city manager position. I was so thrilled about that it was the normal process with the same number of interviews as everybody else. And I didn't have to produce additional documentation or go through a different process. But throughout my career, that has been the case. And that's tough. And at times I've almost given up and decided I don't want the job. And then I have to remind myself that it's bigger than me, that I am probably going to be the first woman of color in that role. Sometimes I've been the first woman in that role. I'm the first female city manager for Costa Mesa. I was the first woman CFO for the city of Long Beach when I was there managing a $2 billion budget. And so I'm almost grown accustomed to having to go through those extra hoops, but it's painful nonetheless because you find yourself just having to do so much more. The second thing is feeling like I'm never doing enough to give back. feeling like there's so much that I want to do and change, and so many people that I want to bring up with me of all different backgrounds, and just feeling like I need to do more, and I need to do more, and when is going to be enough, and am I fulfilling my purpose to the greatest extent? But then that leads to burnout. So knowing how to balance that has been a real challenge, especially with 3 young Black men at home that I want to raise to be good allies of what it is that we're trying to accomplish as women, at the same time making them strong leaders themselves in their own rights. And so managing all of that can be tough at times, but
Absolutely.
we're still here. So
It's still here.
you're doing something of a good job.
Yeah. One of the things about getting older, I mean, it's kind of difficult that I now have more prescriptions in my medicines cabinet than I used to, but I can look back on my career and life with such clarity, such clarity. So what advice would you give your 20-something self? I'm not trying to give away anybody's age, but you're probably you're all over 30, I'm sure. What advice would you give your 20-something self?
I'll go. I would say, oh man, to be 20 again, that would be awesome. But I would say really enjoy the phase of life you're in. It's really a time for self-discovery, a time, to really just enjoy it. In my 20s, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids. So that was a time to, just be a little bit more adventurous, take some more risk, right? In your 20s, you have a little bit of time to take some risks. I would also tell myself not to really invest in people that are only in your life for a season. There's a lot of, I think, time and energy that's wasted that could have been, put towards other things during that time. And then at the end of the day, I would probably tell myself just not to worry so much. I think I was always worried about what's next and, what's going to happen. And just, I would tell myself to really trust God's plan for your life. And everything is going to work out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I tell a lot of 20-something-year-olds, don't stress so much about the job, because the job that you're going to retire from probably hasn't been invented yet. It's just the way our world is, so relax. Let's go to Lorianne. I know when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of fun in the Boogie Down Bronx, which is where Lorianne is from. Big fun there. Go ahead, Lorianne. What would you tell your 20-something-year-old self?
I had a good amount of fun too. So I've been thinking about that question since we received the questions, and I think it's the advice really I want to give the 20 and 30 somethings now today, because I think they're growing up in a
It's to you. What would you tell yourself? I'd like for you to advise.
So for myself,
Lorianne, what would you tell Lorianne?
I actually had a great time in my 20s. I had a good balance of work and play, which then set the framework for me to be able to do that later. I mean, I'll still go to salsa dancing on Wednesday nights every now and again after work, like I used to back in the day. And so I would say to start creating those habits now of how to take care of yourself, so you don't get burned out as you get older, because these habits last. And if you're a workaholic in your 20s, you'll be a workaholic in 40s and 50s. So start the good self-care, the play hard, work hard, and take care of yourself, because so many of us retire and we have illnesses, and we have a lot of other challenges because these habits follow us. You can do both. You can do self-care at the same time that you're working so hard.
Thank you. Okay, Kamara. What would you tell the 20?
Well, it's basically tied into what I just said. I would take time to celebrate my accomplishments as I was doing them, not keep fighting forward all the time without looking back. This is just so stupid. Like, I used to run track and I got a gold medal at the World Championships, but I couldn't even watch track after I finished doing it. I never watched any of my events. All my awards and medals were put away because I was always on to the next thing. Don't be weak, don't look back, don't think that you've gotten there yet. And I wish I would have taken a moment to just appreciate the moment that I was in. And I never did that. I was always looking one step further ahead.
Wow.
And I regret that. And I would tell my 20-year-old self, take a breath, enjoy where you are. You've done good. You're doing great.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's, yeah, good. Okay. I'm trying to decide which question to ask, because we've got just a few minutes. Let's talk about supportive relationships. I'm of the mind that no one really succeeds without support. Let me go back to Kamar, because you talked the other day about the kind of some of this kind of support that you received. It doesn't always come in the same gender that one might think, or color. Kamar, why don't you speak on that for a minute?
Well, professionally for me, my biggest allies had to be white men. That's who had all the jobs that I wanted. And that you have to be able to accept that help, and you have to be able to adapt to it. And those people, those mentors are not going to be perfect. They haven't lived in the same world you've lived in. So you have to give them some grace and try to help them along the way as well. And so I had that support. I've had that support from the 2 elected officials that hired me for my position. I had that support from, well, obviously the governor, and along the way, all the mentors that I had. So I feel like, you know, your allies are going to be the people that are already in the positions that you're seeking it to be, the ones who've already know that roadmap. We haven't been taught the same roadmap. And so I was able to accept that. But honestly, I've just had a very supportive family the entire time. So that's been extremely helpful. My husband's also an attorney. I don't recommend 2 attorneys getting married, but he's just a brilliant man, with a completely different demeanor than I have. And having that person there that you can, you know, bounce those ideas off of. And, you know, also a Black man, we're raising Black children and going through the same thing. And in working in an area, law enforcement, where you just, so much change needs to happen in the system. Having the support of my family during that time, and we work so hard. So, you know, having kids that have learned how to adapt to that as well, which I don't know if that's the best parenting. So that's just, it's been really helpful. And, you know, just keeping those allies along the way.
You know, speak a little bit about mentoring. I think that's something that's important to you, as a way to support others along their journey. Can you say a few more words about that?
Sure, definitely. Mentorship is near and dear to my heart. I think every position I've been in, I've created some type of mentorship program for my students. It's something that I definitely value. I've been blessed to have a number of mentors through my life. You know, I think back to my childhood. My grandma was probably one of my biggest cheerleaders growing up. And she was really I would say, a trailblazer in her own right. She was one of the first Black women to be a deputy sheriff in Los Angeles. So she was a tough cookie, right? And she really imparted her wisdom, instilled that in me at an early age. As I mentioned, my parents worked really hard, so I spent a lot of time with her. And then, you know, just thinking about, you know, my formative years in high school, my dad, who's no longer with us, was really influential. He was actually a maintenance man in a company. And he, you know, he was so personable, and he made so many friends in that company. And he convinced some of the lawyers to hire me as an intern in the legal department in high school. And at the time, I had no idea how that would change the trajectory of my career, right? And so that was just, you know, in retrospect, he really, really paved the way for me in that regard. And I'll always remember him being in my corner.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And then, I was going to mention one more supportive role. As Judge Kamara mentioned, my husband, he has been just phenomenal. I think we really balance each other out. He's more of the extrovert, I'm an introvert. So he challenges me in so many different ways. He really just helps me to think out of the box and pushes me in different directions, you know. So, and then, you know, on the flip side, I support him. He's running for mayor and very ambitious. I try to do that as well.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So, Lorianne, I assume that you've had a lot of support. And what do you say to the woman that says, you know, but I don't want to have to kiss up. I don't want to have to, why can't I just do my work and they recognize me because I've done a good job. Why do I have to go to this party and so on and so? What do you say?
The part of the job. So this is a conversation that I have with women all the time. I think that a lot of men probably understand that more. They'll do more than network. They'll do the golfing. They get together after work. And for women, especially if you're in your childbearing years, you're raising your families, you want to get back home to the kids, do the homework with them. We want them to be high achieving just like us. And so we don't make those connections. I have this kissing up conversation all the time. And it's not sucking up or kissing up. It's actually connecting. It's engaging with someone, getting to know them on a personal level and what makes that person tick and how can you make them shine? While at the same time, you're building that bond, showing that loyalty, you have the skills, you can do the job, and you create allyship right there with your boss, your supervisor, and your peers. And so I find that that's one of the things that sometimes keeps us from getting to certain positions, because in every corporation, there's a point where your technical abilities are going to be important, but it's that next level of allyship, networking, how much of a fit you are at this level, this leadership level. Who do you know? How do you interact with people?
That's right.
That's really important. And if you're not doing that, if you're not connecting at that level, if you're not making the time to network and you're not getting out there and basically politicking the next level up, then it's not going to happen. I had to do that to get to where I am now, is make those connections. And it's key. It's part of the job, and you'll be better for it.
Yeah. There's a saying that it's not what you know, it's who you know, but that ain't true. It is what you know. You gotta be competent, but it's who knows you. It's who knows you, and you got to make that happen. All right, we are going to run out of time if I don't just put a halt to the questions right about now. And Denise, do we have anything in the Q&A or the chat?
We did have one question. I think we addressed it a little bit, but let's go ahead and just ask it right now too. The one question that we had in the chat was, oops, let's see. What do you do to protect your peace and make time for rest while in your daily high stress environments?
What do you do to protect your peace? Is that what you said?
Yes, and make time for rest while in your daily high stress environments.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that one. I've done a horrible job of that. So for me, it's exercise, or it has not been lately. It's where, if you're doing speeches or you have to do a closing argument, it's where I work everything out in my brain and find this place for things and expend that energy so that when I get home, I can just be there and be with my family. So it's finding another, finding time to myself to go for a run, let my brain go in its place so I can come back and let that go. And also in our house, we probably have a pajama day at least twice a month. So no one gets out of their pajamas on one day of the weekend. And for me, it's the best. I mean, I have the hardest time sitting still. I can't even watch a movie, but I could watch a movie in full clothes with my kids in our pajamas, and we're having that time together. And we, that piece for me is that mealtime. We eat at home as a family almost every night. That making sure that we make that time, that we don't let someone else take that from us, that we don't let ourselves take it from ourselves, and not bringing so much work home. I worked in the Children's Justice Center doing child abuse, sexual and physical abuse. And I just said, those files don't come into our house. They never walk into this house. This is our sacred place. This is what we're going to do. So creating that sacred space, creating that sacred time, and just carving it out, because if you don't carve it out, you're just not going to do it.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Someone else have a response for that?
Yes, I can jump in here. So I think, yeah, the hardest thing for me has been self-care, especially having two little ones. I would say, sometimes I just have to go in my room and, turn on the TV for them and close the door, have a cup of tea for about 10 minutes, and then, come back out to enjoy my day. So we have a pretty hectic life. We do try to carve out just a lot of family time, though. We have family movie nights on Fridays, which I really enjoy. You know, my husband Rex and I, we try to have a little date night when the kids go down on Saturday night. So it's just like you mentioned, Judge, just carving out that time for yourself and for your family is really critical to your sanity.
Anything else, Lorianne, or another question? Do we have another question? Because I can keep going with questions.
There's a question in the chat that says, what brings you joy? I think it'd be nice to hear that.
For me, it's spending time with my family, with the boys. They're super funny. It goes to show how we're living in, it's almost like we're living in two parallel universes that aren't quite mixing until we get home, because their reality is entirely different with social media and, you know, which girl they like and you know, who's the best singer right now and what are the great songs, and I'm dealing with an entirely different world that has nothing to do with any of that. So just that brings me so much joy, that they are still so innocent. They still have so much joy, passion, that they're teenagers. And it also keeps me grounded because it reminds me that there's plenty of people around the world that are happy and dealing with all of these other issues and they're doing just fine. And I can engage in that and actually embrace it too. We'll dance at home. We put on some salsa music. I try to teach them how to do a little salsa. And, you know, sometimes they'll turn me on to some TikToks. We'll film a couple, you know, I only post the good ones on Facebook. And just having a good time with the kids. And then, of course, you know, there's the me time, but more than anything else, what brings me joy is the family. And then when we have a huge win at work, when we've actually moved the needle and we've done something incredible to help the community, or we've changed a historical inequity and brought the community
Awesome.
up along with us.
Thank you. So I wonder if you could share, I mean, you've had a lot of success, all of you, throughout the course of your career. Is there one thing that you're most proud of? How would you answer that question? What am I most proud of? Is that like asking which of my children do I love the most? It probably is, but give it a shot.
I'm most proud of never letting myself stop learning. I'm most proud of the fact that I am willing to keep my mind open, because that's what I'm asking people to do every day. I try very hard, even when I'm on the bench and I've gotten something wrong or I'm not getting it, I make sure I express that to those around me, because I feel like it's just so important for people to understand you don't know everything. You're always willing to learn something new and integrate whatever it is that someone's bringing to you. And I say that I'm most proud of that because it's not a skill that I always had. I always was the one that had to be right in every conversation, every argument. And it was just this thing. And now I value not knowing. I value knowing that there's something more out there for me to learn, someplace else for me to grow. Yeah. And I'm really proud that I've gotten to that place. And it's you know, it's been a long time coming, and lots of therapy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's in not knowing, being able to say, I don't know, that's how we grow. If we know, yeah, that's awesome. What are you most proud of, ladies?
For me, I would have to say, you know, and professionally, I have the opportunity to really influence hundreds of students every year. Many of them are a lot like me, first generation college students, and a lot of them are international students. They're here in the country for the first time. Their families have sold, you know, everything they have for these students to have this opportunity here in the US. So knowing that I had just a little something to do with them reaching their goals really makes me proud. I would have to say personally, my children really make me proud. As I mentioned, we just navigated through online kindergarten for a year, and my 7-year-old is now reading and really enjoys to read. And so that makes me proud as a mom.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I share that. I can remember when I taught school and, you know, in St. Croix, knowing, and that was 40, 50 years ago, that I don't know, at some level, they would always carry me. I just have a little bit of impact in the lives of someone, and that has not changed. I like having an impact.
Bonnie, we do have 2 more questions. I know we're getting close on time. So no, let me go ahead and throw both of them out here at the same time. First question is, do you have any future goals for yourself, given everything you've already accomplished? And in the interest of time, I'll throw the second one out too. What policy change would be most impactful to Black women and how they experience academics, economics, and or health?
Great questions. Okay. Let's speak on the first one. The
Future goals?
Yeah, goals, vision. Speak on that if you will. And we have to do that quickly.
For me, I've just started this position. There's so many more things that I'd like to do in this position. So there's a lot for me to accomplish. We have judges meetings with the other 11 judges twice a month. And usually, I mean, it used to be you just we're on Zoom now and all you see are these white men in the room. And the constant thing that I hear from them is, well, we've always done it this way.
Oh.
And which, that's just the craziest thing ever. One of the things I said to them was, well, we used to have slavery. So they fell out of their chairs. They didn't like that so much. But my whole point is that we can always, we can always move forward. We can always create new ways to do things and to be more inclusive. So my goal is to change that from the bench. I've got lots of goals to do that from the bench, to make it more accessible for everyone, not just to get onto the bench, but so that our participants have an access to justice, so that the impact on the Black and brown people is lessened, so that they have all the support they need to navigate that system. So I've got a lot of goals in that direction right now.
I think my future goal is to help build the next generation of leaders in government. We're going to need that. Things are getting more complicated and challenging. The world is just evolving in ways that we couldn't have expected. We need to deal with climate change. There's so many different major challenges that we have. So cultivating that next generation of diverse and really committed, passionate government workers is something that I'm really becoming very interested in, and hoping that I can work with everybody on this call on. We just had unprecedented retirements, and it's important to have representation at every level of government and in public safety. I would love for us to be able to influence every single aspect of government from the inside, not just from the outside, but actually within. That's really where you get the most change, is going inside and educating and building those alliances and moving things forward, changing the trajectory of the profession. And so I'm really jazzed about that. I get really excited about it, and I'd love to partner with you all on it too.
It's important. Denise, can you repeat
Second question?
Did
Yeah, absolutely. The second question was, what policy change would be most impactful to Black women and how they experience or we experience academics, economics, and or health?
Okay, so I'll jump in on the education policy. Educational equity and access is definitely essential. I work in the STEM fields, and we definitely are underrepresented in the STEM field. So that's something I see every day. Making college more affordable. There's so many policies that can be put in place to really make college affordable, and with loan forgiveness. I know that we're moving the needle a little bit on that, but there's still a lot that can be done, because at the end of the day, everyone should have access to education.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think increasing the role of women of color and Black women in HR roles. And so when it comes to training and recruitment and retention, it's so important to have representation so that candidates that are coming forward have an equal chance. I'd like to be involved in panels as much as possible, because I will see things in resumes often that others won't see, or I'll be able to see past a specific issue that they know that might turn somebody off who's on the panel. And so being an advocate at that level, I think we need to do more of that and train more HR professionals so that we understand where to recruit, how to get to people, and also how to build feeder systems within our colleges and universities, or even at the high school level, just to increase the representation of women of color in all fields, whether it's in the trades, whether it's in the military. Again, public safety is an area that I'm always interested in improving access for all women. Female athletes, recruiting them into government roles, in these roles as police officers, as firefighters, again, veterans, that, at that HR recruitment level, the more representation we have, I think the better access people will have to good wages, great income, experience, and really stabilizing their family and bringing them into the middle class.
Thoughts, Kamara?
Well, it's funny. I was going to mention the same thing as regarding hiring practices, because you have to have the right people at the table. And one of the things that Lorianne had said earlier was about being able to be the right fit, but fit is really the F word when it comes to hiring. And it's so frustrating because if you're the only person of color in the room when you go to one of these interviews, of course you're not the right fit. You don't look the same as them. They're not used to seeing someone that looks like you. So changing the hiring practices. And I don't even know how to do that. I will tell you that I got on this school board in Vancouver because there was a school board member who had said something about turning the fire hoses on the protesters during the George Floyd time here in Vancouver. And so I went after that position. And I was only there for a minute because of the next thing came up for the judge. But during that time period, my daughter had applied for the School of the Arts here just before that, and she didn't get in, and she was told that she wasn't the right fit, right? So when I was on the school board, I raised this issue. I said, you guys are not having, there's no minorities at the school because you're having all the people that choose them, they're not minorities either, so they're not the right fit. And they challenged me on that, and they did a whole study and showed that they completely were not bringing in the minorities. No matter how many applied, they just weren't getting in to that magnet program as well as the other magnet programs, and they changed the policy on how these people get into the program. So yes, I would change that. Those are the type of policies I would change, but it's just like Lorianne said, you've got to, people, if you want to change your community, you better get in there and do it. So you've got to get on those school boards, you've got to get on those committees, you have to be at the meetings, and you have to have your voice. So more importantly is just being the person that's there, making sure that your voice is heard, speaking up for others who can't speak up, helping to amplify those voices. Thank you.
Well, we're coming upon time to close. Denise, was there any other question? Because if so.
We do have two wonderful questions. If we can squeeze them in, it'd be great. They go together. Who do you admire today? Who would you like to have a conversation with about our current status as minorities?
All right, so let's just get quick answers. Who? Nina?
Yeah, for me, it would be probably my shiro, Michelle Obama. If it's somebody famous, I would love to have a conversation with her about her thoughts. She has so much experience and grace.
Okay, good. Lorianne?
It would be my grandmother. She knew everything about everything. I don't know how she did that. She had so much wisdom, and I think from an indigenous perspective. And so I think having that wisdom of just the oral and the cultural traditions that are passed on, and having those secrets and having that knowledge that in Spanish we call it sabiduría, it's knowingness, would just be really great right now.
Tamara?
Oh, I don't have a very good answer for you, but mine would be my father. I miss him so much. He was the one that he always just kept reminding me of who I was or who I wasn't. And I miss calling him for advice, and I have for years. And so I wish I could have that conversation with him and let him tell me what this world looks like to him right now and help me see it again, the way that he used to help me see it.
That's a great answer, because I would answer my mom. Last question. Parting thoughts for our audience and for the audience that will view this in the future. What would you like to share to just kind of bring this to a close?
You're not an imposter. You belong. You've worked hard. You're fantastic at what you do, and you just keep on keeping on and don't give up. Surround yourself with people who are advocates for you. Continue to progress in your skills and improving yourself, but do not give up. You're not an imposter, and you are the perfect fit.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would just say, life is short. Make the most out of your life. Lean on that support system to see you through your challenges. And just really overall know your self-worth when you're at the table.
I would say what I just got them saying, you've got to be a part of that change. Local government is where it's at. Local politics is where it's at. You have to be out there. You have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You have to volunteer for your community. If there's something that's not right, you're the person that's supposed to be there to fix it. And you're not going to do it perfectly, but you have to start doing it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I would say continue to support women. Go to lunch, dinner, phone call, whatever it takes. These kinds of things, conferences, but women support women. I know you all have heard it, women can't work for women and all these things that they say about women. I'm pretty sure that was started by some men. I'm serious. I don't accept it. I just don't accept it. I will not accept that. And so I tend not to experience a lot of that. So, alrighty, we have come to the end. Oh man, I am good. It is 9. Oh, I'm in Connecticut. What time is it there? It's 6:30, right on time. I'm going to give this back to Laverne, and she's going to give you some instruction about what's coming next. Thank you all. Thank you, ladies. You were just fabulous, fabulous. We could have gone much, much longer. All right.
Wasn't this wonderful? This was wonderful. All of you are amazing. And I hope that everyone realizes that we got expert advice today from someone in education, someone in government, and someone in law enforcement. 3 very, very important professions that you need to pay attention to as minorities in this community, in all our communities. And I just want to thank you guys for just being there. And this is going to go viral. It's been wonderful. It's absolutely been wonderful. And just to start off your weekend right, we are going to have DJ Mona Lisa on Black History Month, LB.com, for you to enjoy. But before you go, what we're going to do is give you another look at the powerful women of our community, answering the question, these are difficult times. How are you navigating it? Thank you, Ronnie, Lorianne, Nina, and Kamara for an excellent panel discussion.
How do I navigate through these difficult times? The way that I navigate is through knowing that tough times don't last, tough people do. And so every day, regardless of what has happened, the next day is a chance to reset and to start over again with renewed intention and with a positive mindset.
I practice mindfulness strategies and self-care because I work with young high school students and I feel their stress and their challenges in their communities as well as the world.
Yeah, times are difficult, but when have times not been difficult for Black women in America? What do? There's no formula. We just TCB. Some people call it Black girl magic. That's how we roll.
As a mother, a grandmother, a retiree, and a businesswoman, yes, these times are very challenging. But I'm so grateful for FaceTime and Facebook Portal and Zoom, because those connections that are so close to my heart are strong today.
What helps me with professional and personal challenges is good health with lots of water, sleep, and regular workouts so I can be thoughtful and strategic about decisions. I especially love to box.
I reflect. The challenge may take days, weeks, months, years, but I make time to reflect, even if it's just a few minutes a day. Reflection.
How do I navigate through the challenges? Knowing that there's always going to be challenges in life, I go to my happy places: prayer, meditation, art, reflecting on my ancestors to help and guide me through all things.
How do I manage these challenging times? Well, I struggle like everyone else. But last year, I decided it would be important for me to find a sacred space. I wanted to be able to escape and to be in the presence of something that was much greater, spiritually, psychically, emotionally, than what we were living with on the ground. And I have found that to be helpful. And I continue to escape most every week as times become more and more challenging.
During these challenging times, there's 3 key things that I've been doing to keep my sanity and maintain peace. Number 1 is prayer and meditation, starting my morning with a morning reading, music, or something quiet to reflect on the beauty of this world and my life. Number 2, spending time with family. I have a wonderful husband and 2 great children, and just having dinner with them and talking about life or spending the weekends together, that's really where I find a lot of peace and strength. And last but not least, taking naps. I know that may sound funny, but sometimes a good nap is all you need to get refreshed. So on the weekends, or maybe in an afternoon when I'm feeling really exhausted, I take a great nap.
I navigate through difficult times by praying, by seeking help, living in the presence, and remembering this too shall pass.
I cope with the challenges of these difficult times by meditating. I detach myself from all negative surroundings and just be me. I center myself into the present moment. I allow myself to be open to creative opportunities and possibilities. I become one with myself.
You know, there's a saying that when things get rough, you get rougher. When things get tough, you get tougher. I don't actually think this always needs to be true. I think remembering that when things get rough, you go back to your roots. You go back to what centers you. What centered me today was getting outside, feeling the sun on my face, seeing people, and remembering that we're all human and we have human experiences. That is how we get through these tough times, is that we go back to our roots, we go back to what centers us, and we rest when we need rest.
These are challenging times, and I navigate them by finding a little spot of joy every day. It could be playing my favorite song or recalling a wonderful memory, but I hang on to these spots of joy as a reminder that there are better days ahead.
How do I navigate these challenging times? I stay focused, stay positive, and treat people the way that I would like to be treated, and that's with respect. And then I smile. Just smile.
These may be difficult times, but this isn't where we haven't been before. We have examples in Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Claudette Colvin, Hatshepsut, Nefertiti, all of these queens that have come before us in this time of Black history and global history, that we have been resilient. It is in our DNA, and when we're faced with challenges, we have always found a way to reframe it as an opportunity, as a place to pivot, as a place to push forward and advance our ideas, our ideals, and our existence. So I think when we are faced in these times of challenges, we reframe it and we look at it in a new direction of how are we going to use our resiliency to maximize our opportunity.